first, then Chris King, then Gwen Graham. Today's questions were chosen from over 150 submissions that came through online. Candidates will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. They were given the topics ahead of time, but they were not given the questions. We will finish the Q&A with a lightning round of 4 yes/no questions. You know, they're just going to miss it. Yes. Please stop being rude in the back of the room. You've already tried my patience today, so. I know it's crowded. We're very excited to have so much interest in this forum, but we want people to be able to hear. It is being live streamed and it's being recorded, so there will be opportunities for the people who couldn't make it into the room today. So anyway, we will have these yes/no questions, which they were given in advance, and they'll have 15 seconds to give us their response. Yes, no, and if they want to give a very brief answer. I want to thank our amazing caucus leadership team that helped organize today's forum, Vice President Michael Calderon, Secretary Lisa Morano, Treasurer Marilyn Capiello, who couldn't be with us today, our board members, past and present, committee chairs, chapter leaders, and the volunteers who came to help us today. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that we have caucus membership forms on the table outside, as well as clipboards for you to sign up to get on our email list if you would like to do that. We are very pleased that at the end of this weekend, we will have 17 chapters around the state.
Yeah.
Two more groups of people to thank, and then we will get started. This forum would not be taking place without the support of the FDP staff. We're very appreciative of the efforts of Sally Gwen Graham, Nick Polito, Rachel, Roosevelt, Johanna, Juan, Tessa, all the interns, and I'm sure others that I'm not aware of. And finally, I want to thank the campaign staff. I'm not going to attempt to name them because I'll surely forget somebody, but let me just say that these candidates are very lucky to have such dedicated people working to get them elected. And with that, I'm going to turn the program over to our moderator, Keith Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Democrats.
Good afternoon.
So as the moderator of this event, it's my honor to do this, and I thank the Progressive Caucus for asking me to do this job. I don't know how I got this gig, but it's pretty cool. So thank you very much. I want to get right to the questions that we can, but before I do that, let me just explain what we're going to be doing. We will go through a series of questions, as Susan explained. They were distilled from suggestions from Democrats all around the state. I'm going to introduce the candidates here, and we're going to get going so everybody gets a chance to hear what we have to say. This is not a debate. These questions are sort of general because we're going to give these candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves so you can get a sense of who they are, how they think. I am going to do the introductions now. I will have to edit a little bit because it's a little long. So let me begin with Mayor Gillum. Andrew Gillum is running for governor to rebuild Florida into a state that works for all of us. He knows everyone deserves some good-paying jobs so they can support their families. We need to strengthen our public schools and end the cultural bias states testing. As Mayor Gillum has led and developed a thriving local economy, beat the gun lobby, and to take on Rick Scott and to defend immigrants. Under his leadership, Tallahassee has established workforce training programs, and he's now running for governor because we need a fresh approach to solve the problems in our state. And that is Mayor Gillum. Representative, thank you. Representative Gwen Graham says she never expected to run for public office. She worked as an attorney, then focused on raising her 3 children. Gwen volunteered to serve on our school board, children's school board, advisory board, became the president of PTA, then worked for her local school district. In 2014, Gwen challenged a Tea Party congressman in a conservative district, despite being a Republican way here. Gwen won a race, one of just 2 Democrats in the country to defeat an incumbent Republican. She's running for governor to end Tallahassee's education industry, protect our land and water, and build an economy that works for everyone. Representative Gwen. Now it's my honor to introduce Chris King. Chris was born in Orlando. He's a 3rd-generation Central Floridian with an undergraduate degree from Harvard University and a law degree from the University of Florida. He co-founded Elevation, a company that provides seniors across the state with affordable housing options. Chris has also started efforts to serve the community that he lives in, including college scholarship opportunities for low-income students, also funding family farms, and working on environmental efforts in Haiti. He's also worked internationally for entrepreneurship training in East Africa and other places abroad. Mr. King attributes his commitment to public service to his family and faith, and he will tell us more about that in a second. I introduce to you Chris King. Each of the candidates do a brief introduction. As explained, the order was drawn by lots by the campaigns. Let's start with Mayor Gillum.
Right. Thank you, Representative. And good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, since this is a gubernatorial forum, I think it's only appropriate that we start by acknowledging the only governor that we got in the room, former Governor Bob Graham and First Lady. Thank you for your service. The state of Florida is proud of you. My name is Andrew Gillum. I'm the mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, and a candidate for Florida governor. I was elected when I was 23 years old to be the youngest person ever to serve on the Tallahassee City Commission. I was born just a few miles down the road in South Dade, a neighborhood called Richmond Heights, also known as the Heights. My mother was a school bus driver growing up, and my daddy was a construction worker. I'm number 5 of 7 kids, and the first to graduate from college and the first to graduate from high school even. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who took care of us, looked after us because of the hours that my mother and father had to spend on the job. And my grandmother taught me a few things, one of which was to stiffen my spine, to stand up straight, and to never back down. So when the NRA came after me because we refused to remove an ordinance in my city that said you cannot shoot a gun in a city park, the NRA came after us and drugged me through 2 years of lawsuit litigation. And instead of backing down, we beat them not once but twice in the courts. When marriage equality was won all across this country, and county after county after county said that they would no longer issue marriage licenses to anyone, I stood up as the mayor of the city of Tallahassee and said, come here to your state's capital, we will marry you, where we recognize that. When our governor and our president decided to malign refugees and immigrants to divide us based off who we are and what we believe, we stood up and said that immigrant is not a noun, and illegal is not a noun, right? And that all people are welcome. When we had a president and now a governor, both who are climate deniers. And the president decided he would shrink from our global role in providing leadership to address climate change. That same week, I broke ground in Tallahassee on a 120-acre solar farm that would triple the amount of solar energy. When this legislature decided that over odds, they would try relentlessly to turn our public education system into a for-profit model, all of us stood up, pushed back, and said, no, not here in the state of Florida. And when a Democrat is elected governor, and I hope it will be me, our first priority will be to turn back this regressive, horrible legislation that takes away from our kids the opportunity to learn. For 20 years, Republicans have run roughshod over this state, Democrats, and you want to know something? There are more of us than there are of them, and in 2018, we need to send a governor of a Democratic stripe to Tallahassee and win back this state for hard-working people again. Thank you.
Christine.
Good afternoon, Democrats. Thank you for having me. The Progressive Caucus, Mayor Gillum, Congresswoman Graham, it's an honor to be with you. As I see it, as we face the election of 2018, we face two very significant challenges. One is that the state that we love has become a back-of-the-pack state in nearly every economic and quality of life measurement. And two, after nearly 2 decades of uninterrupted Republican one-party rule, they've not been able to fix it. If you look at where Florida is as it compares to the 10 most populated states, where are we on wages? Last. Incomes? Last. Productivity and GDP per capita, last. Affordable access to housing has gone down, and the rate of the uninsured in this state has gone up. Wages have gone down, and poverty has gone up. Our one-party system has unfortunately become a dinosaur at adapting, at innovating, and leading. For our Democratic nominee to win in 2018, it is my belief we have to win the debate on how we build a more fair and homegrown economy. And for our Democratic governor to transform Tallahassee in 19 and beyond, he or she must demonstrate a vision that we do well when we do good. We do good when we lift up small, homegrown business, when we stop the raids on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, when we remind our Republican colleagues that 90% of our public school students are in public school, and at least 90% of our energy must be directed at, towards, and for public school. We do good when we don't take money from the sugar industry. Not because it's bad, but because our environment cries out for a governor who is not beholden. We do good when we pass the Florida Competitive Workforce Act, helping to end discrimination against the LGBT community. We do good when we say yes to the restoration of civil rights for ex-felons, and we say no to access to assault weapons in this state. We do good. That's what this campaign is going to be about. It's going to be positive. Positive, positive, positive. It's going to be inclusive. Everybody is welcome. It's going to be disciplined. We are people of integrity. We are calling people of integrity to come to our tent, and it's going to think big. Think big with us in 18. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is so exciting, and this is such an important conversation to have. So first, I want to thank the Progressive Caucus for arranging this. I want to thank Susan, wherever you are in this room. I want to thank Keith for being the moderator, and Andrew and Chris. This is a great opportunity to talk about issues we're all very passionate about. 20 years. We've had 20 years of Republican dominance, and we do not have any more time. This is the election that's going to determine Florida's future. The future of our public education system, which has become a public education industry, where our kids are being tested and tested and tested, and you know what? They don't want to go to school anymore. We have lost the joy of learning. That is going to end when I am elected governor. Next, our economy. You know what we hear? What do we hear Rick Scott say over and over? Jobs, jobs, jobs. You know what I hear when I hear him say that? You're going to have to work 3 jobs just to get by. People are hanging on in this state. In our environment. Go outside. It is so beautiful out there, but the last 6 years of the Rick Scott administration, they have done everything they could do to destroy our lands and our waters. And as Governor Graham, I'm going to put our environment back #1 to make sure we're protecting it for our future. I have won with the help of many of you in this room. I won with your help in a red year, a red Republican wave, and a red district. And you know how I did it? I did it by going all over 14 counties in North Florida, talking to everyone, connecting with everyone, bringing out the base in Tallahassee. But you know what? Doing well and better than any Democrat has done across North Florida in a very, very long time. And that's what we're going to do all across the state of Florida. We're going to bring out the base here in South Florida. We're going to bring out the voters in the I-4 corridor, and we're going to do better in every part of Florida because we do not have another election to give. This is the election that's going to determine Florida's future. And I want to thank everybody in this room, no matter what candidate you support. When we leave here today, we are all so energized and dedicated because y'all are the future of this state right here. So take that passion, take that dedication, and let's go out and let's make sure that 2018 is not a red year like the year I won in 2014, but 2018 is a blue year where we turn Florida blue from one end of Florida to the next. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much. Well, let me tell you what we're going to do here. We've broken questions down into some groups. And the first topic we want to talk are about big values, big issues, and we want to give the candidates a chance to introduce themselves as people. So the first question is this. Every candidate faces an individual challenge that's unique to them in running for office, and reaching people, and asking them for their vote. So we would like to know what you think your biggest challenge is and how you plan to handle it. And we'll just start. We'll start with Chris.
Sure. Well, my biggest challenge is not a surprise, and it's known by many, is that I'm new to many of you, and particularly many of our very distinguished elected officials. And so, in my opinion, I have double the burden to try to prove that I not only belong here, but that I can earn your trust as your next governor. I don't have some of the long-standing relationships with political officials. However, I have a continuous record of service in this state and around the world. I've built a company that has revitalized thousands of affordable homes for seniors and working families. I started it from scratch during the recession with no capital, but a big dream. I built a company that's now in Title I high schools working to get kids that are talented but need help finding a way to college, making it more accessible and making it more affordable. I've worked on issues like healthcare access and free and charitable clinics because too many people across this state are falling through the cracks. So I think one of the biggest challenges I face is getting around this state and making sure that the message that we have, that our economy is not working, people are falling through the cracks, and we need a Democrat who can compete with the Republicans to win is a big part of my story. I've been to 20 to 22 counties so far since we launched in Orlando on April the 4th. and I plan to be all over the state, meeting with you, talking to you, learning from you. We are passionate, and we want to demonstrate to you we can do this and we can win.
Thank you.
Yes.
20 years of Republican dominance. The biggest challenge we face is the status quo. The biggest challenge we face is the money that is going to pour into Florida to try and prevent a Democrat from being elected governor in 2018. But guess what? It's not going to work. We're going to do it. We're going to face the forces of the money with what our values are and what our beliefs are, what our commitment is to the future of the state of Florida. And this is the election that we're going to start turning those things around. We're going to face that money with our commitment to public education. We're going to face that money with our commitment to an economy that works for all. We're going to face that money with our commitment to our land and our water and our black bears. Any black bear lovers in the room? Because that's what Florida is about. So we're not going to allow the special interests who are going to be forcing this state to face the money deluge that we all know is coming. We're not going to let them win. Because we're going to take Florida back in 2018 for all the values that we care about in this room. I think that's the biggest challenge I face, but we're up for it and we're going to win. Thank you.
You know, I think part of what some people may say about me is, Andrew, you're taking on the NRA. You have, before it was popular, decided to extend domestic partnership benefits. You welcomed same-sex couples to the capital city to get married. You stood up for a higher minimum wage. Are you too progressive for a state like Florida? And my answer to that is, I think the only way we win is not by shrinking from who we are, but by standing up for the values that make the Democratic Party what it is. Because if your kid, whether it be in the northern panhandle of this state, the central Florida agricultural center of this state, or down in South Florida that they think is radically blue, if your kids don't have an opportunity to learn, if you're part of that 45% of this state who cannot make ends meet at the end of the month, if you are a climate believer, denier, or doesn't matter, but your street is being closed down on Miami Beach due to high tide, then you need to be with us. You need to be with the Democratic Party, because we are the party that stand for you, and we're going to stand up unapologetically and stand firmly in what we're doing. Progressive ideals are Florida's ideals. Florida does better when we tend to those problems. And so can a progressive whose values reflect, in my opinion, the majority of us win? My opinion is the only way we win is by bringing those folks out to the ballot, by telling them that we stand for them too. Thank you.
We'll follow in this fashion, so this time Gwen starts, and then we'll be back to Andrew next time around. All right, so thinking about your goals and your priorities, I want you to ask or answer for us. Would you ever follow the example of other governors and say to the legislature, no, I will not accept your budget? I say no, we'll veto it, until you do something I think is our highest priority. Is that an appropriate thing to do, and what would you fight for? What would you say no to the entire budget for to move forward?
Do I start, Keith?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that question, Keith. Public education, absolutely. What has happened, and what has happened with our education system? I'm a proud graduate of public schools. My 3 children are proud graduates of public schools. I remember a time where actually went to school because you were excited about learning. The first work day I did, well, the day before I announced for governor, I was at Carroll City Senior High, and I was with students all day long. And I had one young man come up to me and say, Miss Gwen, I've been in a D or an F school my whole life. I am not a D or an F kid. It broke my heart. And shame on the state of Florida, shame on the legislators and the governor, starting with Jeb Bush, for having done that to our students. Shame on them. So, absolutely, I will veto every single budget that comes across my desk, and I will line item veto all of those pet projects until we get straight with public education again. It is the governor's job to set the priorities and the policies and what is important for the state of Florida. I'm going to go all around the state of Florida advocating on behalf of public education, advocating on behalf of our environment, advocating on behalf of an economy that's not jobs, 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 but that's opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. How about that? But at the end of the day, if the legislature won't work with me, I will take whatever steps necessary to implement those policies, because it's about the future of Florida. And that's what this election is about, and that's what I'm fighting for.
So, first answer is, are there values that are worth between the budget for? Absolutely. And if this last governor, this current governor, if you will, we're trying to make him last, had the spine that the folks in this room knew, he would have vetoed House Bill 7069. So I will tell you one priority, obviously, would be education, but let me tell you exactly in what ways. First, we would actually build a public education system in this state that begins earlier. 0 to 5 is where it's at. As a mayor in the city of Tallahassee who doesn't even have purview over our educational system, by holding symposiums and working with our early childhood centers to escalate and elevate the level of early childhood development that we do. Why? Because between the ages of 0 and 5, 90% of brain development takes place. 90% over the course of human life. The 30 million word gap that exists between kids who come from low income and upper income homes, and we wonder why Johnny is staring off into the Himalayas because he has no context for the words that are spoken in the classroom. So we're going to actually make early childhood education in this state, 1, high quality, and 2, accessible and affordable for all. Number 2, by paying attention to early childhood education, we're going to make sure that we reverse the statistics that exist right now in this state where 40% of our kids are beginning kindergarten not ready to learn. Our goal ought to make sure that 1, our kids get quality access to high quality early childhood education. 2, that every kid begins kindergarten ready to learn. 3, that by 3rd grade they're on grade level reading. 4, by the time they get to high school, if you are not on a trajectory to go to college, then we are equipping you with the knowledge and the skills and the tools that you need in the trades, shop, electrical, mechanical, skills training so that the other little half of our kids who are not on the pathway to college get what they need, monetize that skill, get a job that they can make a good life for themselves and for their family. So you can go from graduation to a job into a career, or graduation into college. And by the way, in this state, that you should be able to graduate college without being suffocated under a mountain of debt.
Keith, my view is that a budget is a moral document. It reflects our values, it reflects what we care about, it reflects who we serve. So for me, absolutely, what you'll learn about me in this process is that I have a very disciplined approach, a very thoughtful approach. I have a very disciplined and thoughtful approach to everything I do. And remember, this Democratic governor is going to be dropped into a situation surrounded mainly by Republicans. And it's going to be the line item veto and the ability to veto, which will be one of our main tools to exact our agenda. So just as a couple of examples, affordable housing. Housing is a crisis across the state. It's a crisis here in South Florida. It's a crisis in Hillsborough and Pinellas, in Orange, in Osceola. And we've rated $1.7 billion from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund over the last 15 years. To me, that is an attack on working families. It's an attack on teachers. It's an attack on law enforcement. That is something that stops the day I'm elected governor, number one. Number two, the environment. The environment. Amendment 1, Forever Florida. You remember this? This is a huge priority of the state. In fact, the one-party system had so terribly enacted the will of folks across the state to conserve and protect valuable lands and coasts that you had to pass an amendment to get them to do it. And they still didn't do it. They still didn't do what you asked them to do. Much like fair districts, much like Amendment 2 in medical marijuana, we have a one-party state government that is not doing what you're telling them to do. That's another example. Public education. My work in Title I schools has demonstrated to me that when we passed something like HB 7069 and created $140 million for charter schools, that robs money from the very schools and the very students that most need it. This is a governor that should be a champion to serve those schools and those students just as he's done.
You're all doing a pretty good job on the time, so I'll just let you all keep it going so you get to talk. This next question is an essay question in short answer form, so I apologize for that. But each of you have said at some public forums that your faith informs your political activity. What we'd like to know is, how does your faith inform your political practice? But also, how do you pursue that while respecting the rights and perspectives of people who have different faiths or no faith at all?
That's real. I often tell folks when I meet them that my grandmother used to have a tradition of taking her bottle of olive oil and twisting the little top off and dipping that bottle of olive oil over into her finger. And she'd take that finger and she'd draw a cross at the top of our foreheads every single day before she would send us out into the day. She sent us out with a blessing so that no evil would come our way. I grew up partially between the Church of God in Christ, briefly in the Methodist Church, and now in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The way my faith informs my values is frankly consistent with how Democrats, when we are our real selves, actually perform. The president's motivation around providing access to health care for all people, Scripture talks about what it is that we do to take care of one another, the health of his people, right? Scripture also talks about our need to take care of the land, our environmental stewardship, what we talk about doing as relates to air quality and water quality and making sure that we preserve this land for generations to come. That's our faith. That's our faith in work. Y'all know the term, faith without works. It's dead, right? And so the way I reconcile my faith is through my actions. Scripture says you will know me by my deeds. You will know me by my deeds. So I can say a lot of things. I got 15 years almost of a record you can look at. And what I would challenge you to see in that record is that you're going to know me by my deeds. What we've done speaks for my faith.
I grew up with that great scripture, those to whom much is given, much is required, much is expected. It was very important to me, and as most folks know, my faith has been a big part of my life. It's been a big inspiration, and that has led me to do this audacious task of running for governor, because I care so much about so many people. You know, for me, what my faith has been about is how it teaches me and inspires me and motivates me to serve. So whether it's been my work in affordable housing, or Title I schools, or my work in Haiti or Africa, to me, it's because we have been so cared for and so loved that we have that reflection. But the challenge that our party often has, and what I will be speaking to across this stage, is that the other side, the other party, has really taken this away from us, right? The religious right for 20 or 30 years has created a very limited definition of what people of faith should look like, should care about, and they've been very successful at winning votes. So don't be mistaken. I am a person of faith that can go toe to toe with them. And I believe, like the mayor said, that my life story will stand under that scrutiny. But I will also be challenging them. Whether it's for the protection of rights and anti-discrimination against the LGBTQ community that I come to because of my faith, whether it's for affordable housing or health care that I come to because of my faith, that's going to be very significant. My senior advisor is Muslim. My campaign manager is Jewish. We have Catholics and Christians. This is a campaign that wants to bring people together and not tear people apart. That's a big reason that we think we're going to have a competitive advantage in running this race.
Okay, I'm going to get personal here. I attend St. John's Episcopal Church in Tallahassee, and on the front of the bulletin every Sunday there's a saying, and it says, "No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here." No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. And I think that's really important. I actually went to church on Sunday night, and my pastor, Mother Abby, she saw something in my eyes, and she came up to me after the service and she said, "What's going on?" And I said, "You know, I'm running for governor." And I said, "I'm someone that loves people. I'm not a divider. I love bringing people together, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of your sexual orientation. I am someone that loves to bring people together." And it's hard to be in a situation where you feel like you're in a divisive race. So I just want to say right here that I love you, Andrew. I love you. I don't know Chris as well, but I love you too. And I love you, Keith. And you know what? We need a whole lot more love in this world. We need a whole lot more love in this world. And so as we leave this room, let's all remember that we love one another, that we support one another, that we all care about the future of Florida, regardless of who you support in this campaign. But let's take that love and do good out in the world. Because no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, we are all welcome here.
I like that question. Okay, so now we would like to move on to some more traditional issues. We know it's early in the campaign. We don't have mile-high briefing books. That's not the point. We're still looking for thinking and values and that sort of thing. So to kick it off in that big picture way, we wanted to ask each of you to say what you thought the biggest problem, challenge facing the world is. What's the biggest challenge facing the United States? And what's the biggest challenge facing Florida? What as governor could you or would you do to take on those challenges? And I believe we're now starting with Chris.
Yes. So clearly, the biggest challenge in Florida, which now we're seeing on the national scene, is that our state has become a back-of-the-pack state. Our income's 41st in the nation. Wages, median wages, 41st. Per capita GDP, we compete with Montana and Kentucky. Over the last 15 years, from 2000 to 2015, our economy, our per capita GDP, if you adjust for inflation, barely grew, which means if our economy was a runner in a race, we barely left the starting blocks in 15 years. And that's from the party of the economy, economic growth, and business. And so all of the issues that we care whether it's housing or healthcare or environmental protection or public education. We can't address any of those things until we address our economy. It is our engine of growth and is our engine of fairness. And so because of that, Keith, we have fallen behind in so many areas that impact people. And now what we're seeing with President Trump, unfortunately, whether we're talking about Obamacare that might take health insurance for 23 million people, whether we're talking about the Paris Accord, which is sending us backwards on environmental protections, and for a peninsula like Florida is terrifying for the future, whether we're talking about Cuba policy just yesterday, where for 55 years we did it one way, and it didn't seem to work all that well, and now he's taking us backwards again. There's a common theme, back of the pack, and I know that all of us are about wanting to see Florida rise and lead. Who wants to be in a race with 50 other people and be finished with 41, 45, or 50th? Not me, not Andrew, not Gwen. And we are the party that does big things. We are the party that fixes things. And that's what this candidate is about to do.
Who's next, Keith? I can't remember. Is it me?
Yes.
Okay. The biggest challenge we have facing the United States, without question, is Donald Trump. And quite honestly, he's the biggest challenge facing the world as well. So I've answered both of those with the same answer, Donald J. Trump. In terms of Florida, we've talked about the biggest challenges that we face. We have got to return our public education system back to a system that cares first and foremost about our kids. First and foremost, that is about educating and exciting kids and having an education system that no matter where you live in Florida, you're getting the opportunity to have the quality education that we all deserve. 9 out of 10 kids go to public schools. And we need to support those public schools all across Florida. And as Governor Graham, I'm going to make sure that we make our public schools the best in the country by providing the resources, by supporting our teachers, by providing them the pay that all teachers deserve. Teachers are our heroes. They should be the best paid people in the state. By actually cutting, yes, thank you, Samantha, by actually cutting class size. We have this class size amendment, but you know what? The class sizes are still way too large for teachers to teach. By ending the grading of our schools, it is not grading, it is degrading to our kids. Degrading to our kids, degrading to our communities, and it will stop underneath a Governor Graham. And our economy needs to be an economy where we provide a wage, raising the minimum wage. I'm all about 15. We need to raise the minimum wage to 15. We need to make sure that we're providing paid sick leave. So there's a lot that we need to do in Florida, and I am committed from day one to making it happen.
So since Gwen Graham says she loves me, I'm going to return the favor and say I agree 100% with her responses about the biggest threat to the world and the country, which is Donald Trump. Period. And in the state of Florida, I think our biggest challenge that we face is the fact that roughly half the people in this state can't make ends meet. We can talk about all of these issues and all of these problems, but the truth is that people have to keep up with their ability to pay their bills by holding down 2 and 3 jobs away from their family, away from their kids. That's a problem. We can't focus on our education system and improving the outcomes for our kids if the only jobs we're creating in this state are low-wage jobs. So I'm for a higher minimum wage. I'm for the fight for 15, but you know what? I don't know a darn person who wants to fight for a minimum. What people want is a wage, and a wage with dignity. They want to be able to work. They want to be able to work. They want to be able to work a single job a single job, earn enough on that job to take care of themselves, their family, and maybe even take a vacation once in a while. And that shouldn't be too much to ask in the state of Florida. And so one way we gotta do this thing is that I actually think by leaning into this state's challenges, we can actually create an economy out of that. This governor sent back, told 1.5 million people they shouldn't have access to Medicaid, and in so doing has sent $51 billion back to the federal government. Think of the number of jobs we could have created. Nurses, nurse technicians, practitioners, technicians, you name it, right? What if we had decided instead of sending Obama's $2.3 billion that could have built high-speed rail to connect the central part of the state to the south part of the state? Those are good jobs. Think of the men and women, the construction workers, the architects, the engineers, the food vendors, and the secondary economy that creates. Think if we were actually going to make being the Sunshine State mean something and commit to building solar energy and being a global leader in this state of Florida. Those are good jobs, and that's what you would get from a Governor Gillum. Good jobs with dignity.
Next question. Next question is going to be about jobs. What the governor can do. Would you mind if I gave the other candidates a chance to respond to that? What can we do?
So long as you give me 2 more minutes.
Yes, you will get your minutes. But seriously, we as Democrats, it's not just any job. It's a good job, living wage, with dignity and opportunity. So let's let the other candidates have a crack at that.
Absolutely. So for the last 2 decades, our governors in Tallahassee under one-party rule have been focused on the biggest corporations, right? Sending large amounts of money out of the state to attract big corporations to open up satellite offices with low-paying jobs. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. You know, part of the challenge is every 4 years the Democrats say pretty much the same thing. We say we need more jobs. We say we need higher wages. But what's our vision? What's our big idea? What's our fresh thinking so that when the Republicans start focusing in on us, we withstand that scrutiny? You know, when I launched 2 months ago, I launched with a vision I call Homegrown Florida, which is about how we flip the script and how we focus on homegrown small business that creates the type of jobs that support families. Yes, we've got to increase the minimum wage. Absolutely. It's atrocious. It's $8.10. And yes, we've got to invest in workforce training institutes that ready the workforce of the future for the industries that pay good wages. But the biggest challenge, and one of our big ideas we call the Jumpstart Fund, is how do we get capital? Because this is a capital desert state. If you are an entrepreneur, an urban entrepreneur, a Hispanic entrepreneur, a returning veteran, a recent college grad, a senior looking to start over after the Great Recession, this is not the state you're going to find capital. So what we want to do in our Jumpstart Fund is make it more possible for the entrepreneurs of the future that are creating those jobs that pay good wages to get that money, to get that training, and be able to start those jobs in Florida. I imagine hundreds of thousands of new businesses over the next 10 years in Florida. We have to find a way to do it. It's the only way we're going to fix what is a broken economy in Florida. Thank you.
So what do we hear when we hear Rick Scott say jobs, jobs, jobs? It means here in Florida, many people are having to work multiple jobs just to get by. We've got to fix that. We've got to be providing opportunity for technical training. When I was in Congress, I introduced a piece of legislation that would help fund technical training in the middle school years. How many of y'all have lived through the middle school years, right? It's a time in life when you want to excite kids. You want to get them ready to go to school every day and have something that they're passionate about. So we need to have technical training in middle school years, through the high school, through community colleges, wherever someone wishes to end up in their education. what we need to do in Florida. We need to expand our economic base. We have a great tourism economy, we have a great agriculture economy, but we need to be investing in other jobs as well. Technology, all three of my children, I'm really proud of them, all three of them though had to leave the state of Florida to get a job that they were trained to do. That's not acceptable. We need to have the jobs here so that everybody's kids can stay here in Florida and love Florida and be part of growing Florida. And we need to invest in infrastructure. Has anyone sat on a road anywhere recently in traffic? Maybe. You know, it is, when I hear Governor Scott, when I hear Donald Trump talk about building a wall in Mexico, you know what I think? Can't we just finish this Palmetto Expressway first? Wouldn't that be a good thing to do? So there's so much that we should be doing here in Florida to grow our economy, so that it's an economy for all of us, and that we can all live and love and enjoy all that Florida has to offer. Thank you.
Just to pick up on this jobs conversation, in my second year as mayor of Tallahassee, we were voted the best place in Florida to start a new business by Wallet Hub. We have focused hugely on building the future economy of this state, building the future economy beginning in Florida's capital city. We received during the Obama administration a tech hire designation. 50 were awarded in the country, 2 in the state of Florida, Miami, and Tallahassee, because of the work that we've been doing to retrain workers on the jobs that exist today, right? Not the future. The future is coming, but the jobs that exist today in our state. I, as a city commissioner, voted to help recruit a company called Danfoss Turboport to our city, which basically makes component air conditioning parts for AC units, right? And the challenge that they're having is not in PhDs and scientists and engineers. The challenge that they're having are folks to come in and work those machines. And guess what? They don't necessarily need a college degree in order to do so. You just need an additional set of training on a set of skills, and they can put you on that line and begin you working. I visited a company in my city called, it's a Scan Radiology and Associates is the name of it, cancer radiology. And the doctors there were saying they were having difficulty finding the technicians to work the machines to scan a good enough picture that the doctors could interpret it. And this is why it's so important that we double down on the skills training piece, everybody. Because you know what, our hyper-emphasis and focus on college only has left the literal other half out. And the truth is that if we train them, and make them ready, they can walk into these jobs and make a good wage for themselves and for their families. One example happens to be that I had a plumber at my house. He was there for an hour and walked away with $300 of my dollars. Good jobs that we have now made unpopular. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to do in order to lift this state's wage and create opportunity for everybody to succeed.
But I lost track of whose turn it is to start. So you, okay.
Whatever you tell us to do.
I want to have a shot. Really interesting discussion. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about healthcare. We all know that the other party is making moves to crash Obamacare. Let's assume you've just become governor of Florida, and you're facing a federal policy that has destroyed what we worked to achieve. What are your priorities? What do you do? I think, let's go with this.
Sure.
Chris, you got the mic, you go.
All right. So that would be a big problem, Keith, obviously. This is Florida is the center. We have 2.6 million Floridians, 2.6 million that don't have access to a doctor currently. It was a tragedy, in my view, when the legislature in 2015 said no to Medicaid expansion. It was one of the greatest motivations of why I'm running for governor. I grew up with a mother who was an activist for healthcare, so if I get this wrong, she's not going to like it very much. much. For the last 3 decades, she was a volunteer, a director of our nonprofit healthcare chain in Orlando, and then chairman of the board, and then in the last 10 years helped found a free and charitable clinic that has served thousands of people that are falling through the cracks, just as she said. And if there's one thing she taught me that everybody deserves access to great quality health care. To me, it is tragic. It is tragic what is happening in Washington. It's tragic that we are looking at the possibility of our bad situation getting even worse. Folks with pre-existing conditions come up to us at DEC meetings across this state, and they're terrified. There are age issues now between 50 and 64 where seniors now potentially may have to pay so much more for their health insurance. What we need in the next governor, first, is somebody who believes that everybody should have access to health care, and second, is willing to do everything in their power to make sure that this state is not at the back of the pack in having folks having access to the basic services to live, but that have that access. That's going to be something I'm going to spend a lot of time working on.
Healthcare is a right. Healthcare is a right. We should all have quality healthcare in the state of Florida. So what is appalling about Trump here, it is so appalling, is that they're going to be sending block grants to states if Trump care passes, and we all have to fight to keep it from passing, because it's something that is going to be hurtful to people. So what we need to do in Florida is make sure that first, pre-existing conditions are always covered. Insurance companies should not be able to be making the decisions who lives and dies. Can we all agree on that? Insurance companies should not be able to make decisions who lives and dies. And I know that we need a public option in this state. We need a public option where anyone in Florida has a right to purchase the health care that any state employee has the right to purchase. And I want to end, I have a minute more. It is appalling that we did not accept Medicaid in this state. And I have toured hospitals, and I have seen patients, I have talked to doctors. People are dying as a result of the failure of taking Medicaid expansion. How do our legislators, how does our governor sleep at night? How do they sleep with themselves? So I want to say this though. Many of you know that I have had, and my husband and I have had a difficult journey in the last couple of years. Steve was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. The initial diagnosis was a tough one, but you know what? He is in full remission now. He's in full remission. But you know what? I want the miracle that has happened to our family to happen to every family in Florida. That's what I want, and that's what I will fight for. And it is quality health care for all that made Steve's remission possible, but it's what I will fight for everyone in Florida.
And Steve, know that so many of us were praying for your full recovery, and so congratulations. Now, you and I joked before the beginning that we've gone in the reverse. I'm losing my hair, and you got a head full of hair. First thing the next governor has to do is extend Medicaid in this state. Period, full stop. We got to extend it. There's a misnomer that 1.5 million people who are not covered are somewhere sitting on the couch, lazy, shiftless, not doing anything. But the truth is, these are the folks who fit into what we call the working poor. They can't afford to get sick. You know what it means not to be able to afford to get sick? You can't afford to get sick because if you get sick and you take off work, you lose your hours and you don't get the wage. You don't get the wage, can't bring it home to pay your bills. You don't pay your bills, your lights get cut off. You gotta find a new place to live. This is real, not a talking point. It's the lived experience of people all across the state of Florida. They're doing everything that they can to make it. Everything. The reason why healthcare is a right is because when any one of us gets sick, it impacts the folks around. Not just you. And by the way, if you don't have health insurance and you show up to get your access to health care at the hospital in the emergency room, all of us with insurance, whether it's be employer-based or private sector insurance, y'all realize we're paying for that, right? It's a pass-through. Shows up in our premiums that are unpredictable, increasing at rapid rates year over year over year. And so this system has to change. It's got to be reformed, and we need a Democratic governor, who's going to stand in the gap of those people who can't stand in that gap for themselves. And that's why we got to make sure that we extend Medicaid and build a system that meets our values, that makes healthcare accessible and affordable and reliable for everybody who lives within the
That's great. Now, we have to talk about education policy. And education, a high quality education, is actually a right for every Florida child under the Florida Constitution. In order to get high quality education, parents need to have a faith and a choice that they can get that high quality from the schools they have. So what does the governor of Florida, what does the state of Florida do to make sure every child, wherever they live, actually gets access to high quality education? Actually, yes.
Keith, what
Sorry, you guys are giving such good answers, I'm getting lost. I'm listening to the answers.
Public education is my passion. And as we stated, 9 out of 10 kids here in Florida attend our public schools. What has happened in the last 20 years started with Jeb Bush and ended with 7069 this week is disastrous for our kids because it has turned our public school system into an industry where kids are waking up every day and they're facing test after test after test. So what do we need to do? A, I will end the testing culture that has taken over our schools. It will end. B, the grading system, no child should walk into a school and feel that his or her school is any less than any other child. So we will end the grading system that determines whether a school is an A or an F. Every school is an A school in this state, and we need to support every school as an A school. We've talked about a lot of the things the state of Florida and Floridians have supported. One thing we haven't talked about was the lottery. 30 years ago, the people of Florida voted for a lottery with the commitment that the lottery funds were going to be used to add funding to our schools. Add funding to our schools. So I'm going to end the lottery shell game, where the money that should be going to add money to education is not supplanted by the legislature moving money around in the budget and cutting funding from the state of Florida. We're going to adequately and fund our schools to the point where every single child, you talked about having a quality education, Keith, every child walks into a school that is funded so that they can learn and live and have an opportunity to graduate and then enter our workforce. It's going to provide great jobs here in Florida for them. It all starts and ends with education, and that is my passion, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
So, the Speaker of the House of the state of Florida says that the kids in this state attend failure factories. I don't know of a leader who responsibly uses that kind of language to describe where over 90% of our kids are still being educated in the public system. Yet he uses it without any recourse from anybody. This is what they believe, and we can't believe that 7069 is a mistake. This is the corporatizing of our public education, and what makes it so offensive and immoral is that education still remains in this country the best opportunity we get to make our way up and out. They did it for me. They did it for me. So if we want to talk about grading, why don't we begin by grading this legislature who had one job to do? They had one job. They had one job. Pass the budget on time. They couldn't do that, so what did they do? They came back and then they shoved down our throats a shell game as if they were working and negotiating on our behalf, and they did it in the back rooms to move away what is a compact that exists between the public and the government, that every child has an opportunity and an equal opportunity to learn. We have to return back to that public compact. And it begins with early childhood education. It begins with making sure our kids begin kindergarten ready to learn. It begins with making sure that they're on grade level reading. It begins by re-infusing radically into the 9th grade through 12th grade system trades that equip our kids with skills that they can work. Because this testing regime has literally pushed our kids out. We say if you're not on a college-bound track, then good luck and good riddance. And we wonder why we have to deal with issues like crime. So this regime, we're going to kick it to the curb, right? First of all, man, I got 1 second. We're going to kick it to the curb because science tells us that these tests don't tell us what our kids know. It tells us how well they take a test. And that's not acceptable.
So public school gave me my greatest blessing. I was in public school, I was a sophomore, and I fell for a girl who became a woman, who became my wife. She was a senior, I was a sophomore. It was a problem for her. It was quite an opportunity for me. It worked. We're married, we've got 3 kids, so I have the enduring responsibility of public school. The biggest issue, as I see it, testing has to be reformed, pay has to be raised, incentives have to be restructured, they make no sense. What entrepreneur in the state of Florida does their end-of-year bonuses based on looking at Andrew's ACT score or Gwen's SAT score? Makes no sense. But what I have learned, and I think you would agree with me, and many of you here are public school teachers, is teachers. It's about teachers. And so pay and incentivization and recruitment, all are key issues. But what teachers are telling me is they're saying, Chris, for now 2 decades, I didn't go into teaching to get rich. I didn't go into teaching knowing there wouldn't be some sort of accountability, some sort of test. I get that. You may be able to reform this or reform that, but we're still not going to be making enormous wages. We need to be making higher wages. We're still going to have some testing. We shouldn't be having this testing. But what they say, the big determinant is respect. It's trust. One teacher said, the profession of teaching has become almost like a menial labor job. And we all know that the greatest idea in education is to have a great teacher in every classroom. Many of you are those teachers. This is the government that in every day is going to be thinking of the best ways and working hardest to make teachers feel as if this is a profession again. That this is a profession that when they sign up and they come to work in the morning, they've got a governor in Tallahassee who is their advocate, their champion, and somebody pulling for them. Thank you.
Y'all doing okay? We want to move on a little bit here. I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions about our broken politics. People have lost faith in the political system. People across the board feel like politics is broken, it doesn't listen to common people, and they even have questions about their faith in participating. You're running to be a political leader, and so we want to ask you a couple of questions about how we can restore people's faith in the system. First, what will you do to protect everyone's right to vote?
First of all, we need to make it easier. We need to make it easier. We ought to have automatic registration in the state. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous the lengths that we go through to keep people from voting, y'all. And the truth is that it's not accidental. This is very, very, very deliberate, right? You're talking about the fact that we sit in a state where, 1.6 million people have had their voting rights, their civil rights taken from them? We're just one of two, I think one of three of the states.
Worse, most egregious efforts at reinstating the rights of former felons. In this country, we have something in the Constitution called double jeopardy. You can't be tried twice for the same crime, but it seems that you can be punished perpetually for a mistake. That's a problem. And so, we've got to make it easier for folks to access the ballot box. But the truth is, we also got a lot of people who are registered who don't exercise their rights, who don't go out and vote. And I know a lot of people like to say it's because they're shiftless and aren't interested in the process, and it's just hard to move them. But the truth is that we got to give people a reason to go out and vote. We got to give them a reason to go out and vote. Because if we're not talking about what they need to hear, if they don't believe us, that we're willing to go out there, stand for what we believe in, go out there, fight to the mat for them, why would they show up and vote? Because you're talking about people who are moving, get up in the morning, getting their kids to school, going to work, doing extracurricular. We've absolutely got to do the best job that we can. And this is where we come in. Making sure that we're out there talking about the issues that are important and that matter, and then helping to build that level of trust that says, when you send us there, we're going to be your champion. Not special interests, not the well-financed, not the well-heeled, but your champion. That's my vision.
So absolutely, I agree with Andrew as it relates to automatic voter registration. You know, 5 states do it. Illinois just passed it. Democratic legislature, Republican governor signed it unanimously. It makes total sense. Restoration of voter civil rights for ex-felons. We have 1.6 to 1.8 million folks that are almost a permanent underclass. I like to say when I'm speaking to people, we've created a situation in Florida where it's just almost impossible to have a second chance. And that's not right. We were talking about faith earlier. The party of faith we're often running against. How is that right? In grace and mercy, that we penalize. Someone has to serve their time and then they keep getting punished for the next 5 or 10 years. It doesn't make any sense. But one of the things I'm proudest of in my family, Andrew was very gracious to recognize Bob Graham, who we all agree in this room was a legend for the state of Florida. And I know that Gwen adores him and that role as his father, but you know, I think I've got a pretty cool father too. My dad, I'll brag on him, my dad was the lead lawyer for fair districts. With the state of Florida created a partisan gerrymandered map in 2010, and they fought the Fair Districts Coalition. Many of you were a part of it for years and years and years. My father was the lawyer who took the state of Florida to court, who took Will Weatherford and Dean Cannon under oath, and he proved that what they did was unconstitutional. And I've seen today Congresswoman Demmings, Congressman Soto, Congresswoman Murphy are all in office because of fair districts. And I would argue we are being so much better represented because they're in office. I hope you'd agree to that.
I'm a big believer in fair districts, and I saw it firsthand in Congress, where the gerrymandering results in people walking on the House of Representatives floor, and they don't even really know what the issues are. They're going to vote Republican or Democrat because they care more about appeasing their base than they do about doing what's right. And I believe in doing what's right every single time. So we do need fair districts from one end of this country to the other. But we also absolutely need to be encouraging and increasing opportunities to vote. It's appalling that we have 9% of our population who are not allowed to vote in this state. And you know what? It is a form of voter suppression. Everyone in this room knows that.
We should have automatic restoration of rights. I had an opportunity to do a work day. Does everyone here know what work days I have? I'm doing work days like my dad did. We recognized my dad a couple times, which I appreciate very much. Thank you, Andrew and Chris. But I'm doing work days. My last work day was at Operation New Hope, which is a wonderful, wonderful nonprofit in Jacksonville that works with the formerly incarcerated to integrate them back into our communities, provide them an opportunity to have the support so that they can go get that job. But you know what? I met a young man, his name was Jarvis. Jarvis is such a phenomenal young man. He said, you know what, Miss Graham? I said, please call me Gwen. But he said, you know what, Miss Graham? He wouldn't call me Gwen. I am graduating with honors tomorrow from Jacksonville University, and I can't vote. And I want to vote. I want to be able to participate. I want to be able to vote for you, which was pretty nice. And we need to be making sure that we are allowing those that have served their time to get their voting rights back. And we also need to be making sure that we are expanding the rights to vote. Do you know that it is limited on college campuses? This is something that I am very concerned about. We should be on college campuses giving our college students as much opportunity to vote anywhere that can hold the lines for the voting lines. So this is an issue in the state of Florida that as governor, I will begin to reverse it to make sure that we're encouraging and allowing the opportunity to vote, not discouraging it and limiting it.
Okay, so here's the last one of these questions about our work in politics with respect to the chair of the party here. Effectively, when the nominee takes up that mantle, they become the leader of the Democratic Party in the state of Florida. Some people have a sense of distrust or a concern about the quality of the Democratic Party. What would be your vision for being a leader for our party when you take up that?
So the question is, how do we strengthen the Democratic Party in the days and months ahead as we seek to win a historic election in 2018? First, we all have to get behind our new party leadership. Stephen Mattel and his team. This is our team. We're not going to win elections if we're not working together. But most importantly, this party needs a broad-based economic message. Number one, we have been beaten over and over by the Republicans. We come very close, but all of our candidates up and down the ballot need to be speaking from the same tune on a broad-based economic message that lifts people up, that lifts wages up, and that tells the story very clearly that the Republican one-party government has mismanaged this economy. It's hurt people, and we're going to hold them accountable, number one. Number two, we have got to engage with the grassroots. Our candidates, and I included, I've been to so many DECs across this state. I will be all over this state. I have got to make sure, any gubernatorial candidate has got to make sure that you have access to us, that we don't have a tin air, that we're hearing your concerns, that we're responding in real time to what you're seeing on the ground. That healthy relationship is going to be very, very important. But the third thing, and I believe this in my heart, it's why I'm running for governor and not another position. This is the culture change position. This is how we change Florida. What has been so hard for our party to do for so many years is build this party is because we've not had a governor that has the ability to appoint 4,000 people across this government, that has the ability to set a vision and inspire and excite like Lawton Childs and Bob Graham and Ruben Askew and Leroy Collins did. We have to win this position. It's as important to rebuilding this party as anything that we can do.
I feel pretty good about our Democratic Party. I'm looking out of this room and everybody is so wonderful and engaged. And I think the election, if there's anything anything positive that came out of Donald J. Trump, and it's hard for me to say that there is anything, but it is the fact that we're all engaged and we're all here and we're all ready to fight to make sure we elect people that have our same value system. So I want to thank everybody for that, because we're going to take that energy from this room and we're going to win up and down the ballot in 2018. And one of the things that I love doing, and I appreciate so many young people that came by our hospitality suite last night. I have seen so many young people here this weekend, and y'all are our future. Y'all are our future. And I love working with young people. I worked in the school district in Tallahassee for a very long time, and it was an honor of a lifetime to be able to have a voice and a role in young people's lives. And now I'm going to take that and I'm going to work with Democrats up and down the ballot to make sure that they have the support of the party, the passion of the party, the guidance of the party, so that we can elect Democrats into all types of offices. Probably the most important office you could ever run for would be school board, where you can make a difference in your kids' lives and your kids' education. So let's, as a party, recommit ourselves to helping young people, helping people who wish to engage in this process, because there's nothing better in the world. I'll tell you, the greatest thing about being in public office is the ability to help people. That is the greatest thing about being in public office. My ability to help people when I was in Congress, I'm going to take that and I'm going to help people all across the state of Florida, and I want to help elect Democrats in doing that as well.
Part of electing a governor or nominating a nominee for governor of the state of Florida is you do become the voice, the face, the embodiment of what we as a party believe. And the truth is that that person needs to be able to encompass fully what it means to share our values. The truth is that there's not two different parties just because we all want to align someplace or another. They're there because there's a set of values and issues that drive us, that keep us connected. One of the reasons I'm a Democrat is because growing up in South Dade, doing what my mother and father did for work, and the environment, the programs that needed to exist to make a way for me to sit here before you as the mayor of Florida's capital city and a candidate for governor of the state of Florida, is largely because of the policies that we have championed as a party. And the truth is, further, that we gotta make sure that people understand that we're not trying to be Republican light, we're trying to be Democrats. And part of what it is to be a Democrat is standing up for public education unapologetically, standing in the gap for those folks whose lives we believe we can improve, not because we're gratuitous or altruistic, but because we understand that this is the lived experience of people every day in this state, and they deserve to be heard and to be represented. And we have to go everywhere. Right? I went to the Villages the other week. Lord have mercy. Shout out to the Villages. I don't know if y'all are in the room, but they blew me away. I thought there'd be about 50 Democrats. We showed up. This room was teeming with over 500 Democrats. Over 500. Standing room only. We went to Pensacola. We had folks saying that we haven't had this kind of diversity show up, declaring themselves as Democrats to hear the Democratic nominee for governor in a long time. Right? And so those are the folks that we have to get to. Those are the voices that we have to hear and reflect, because the next governor of the state of Florida isn't going to be in a race for the Electoral College. You don't win this county and lose that one, pick up that one and lose that one. The one who will be the next governor will be the person who gets one more vote than the next person. It may come from Dade, it may come from Escambia, it may come from Dade, it may come from Duval, which is why we have to go everywhere. Be unapologetic about who we are and what we believe, and compel more people to our party and what it is that we stand for as Democrats.
So to finish this part of the presentation, we're going to do a little lightning round. So these are questions that you all actually had a chance to look at, and they can be answered with a yes or no. If you need to add a sentence, that's okay, but no more than 15 seconds. That was the deal. So here we go. The first question. Is healthcare a human right? Chris?
Well, we're all Democrats, so absolutely. I think my mom would not let me come home with a different answer.
Yes, and we need to institute a public option so that people across the state of Florida can have the same health care opportunities that any state government employee does.
Absolutely, healthcare is a right, and we got to change this state's policies to make that actual
And realized.
Okay, second question, should fracking be banned in the state of Florida? And what's our opinion?
Absolutely, positively, as my mom used to say, we should ban, there is no reason in the world, we need to end our dependence on fossil fuel. It is an addiction that the fossil fuel industry has created. We can start it right here in Florida by promoting and making sure that every rooftop has a solar panel on it.
Well, as the mayor of the city of Tallahassee and a member of the commission there, we passed a resolution to ban fracking in the state of Florida. But you know what? We ought to ban it everywhere. Keystone was wrong, as is Sable Trail is wrong. We got to do everything that we can.
Okay, that's okay. These are speech.
The lightning round, you're right.
Right, speech and questions. Next question, should.
Let me answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Settle down.
That's okay, although I agree very much with what they said. I would ban fracking, I would ban offshore drilling, and I would suggest that for the last 20 years, with $58 million, one industry, the sugar industry, has had a grip on environmental policy. That's why I'm not taking sugar money, and I think that is going to take us to a much better place.
Should public tax dollars be spent to build private schools?
No.
No, we need to end the public school education industry and turn it back to our kids, our teachers, our administrators, and the schools across Florida, the public schools across Florida.
Last question is, should Florida become an open primary state?
Yes, Florida should be an open primary state because we need to bring more people into the process. We need to bring, we got to bring more people into the voting and the democratic process for democracy and not less. And we have an opportunity to do that through open primaries.
Absolutely. If we want to grow this party, to say no to that question would mean that we can't compete with the other party on ideas and innovation. We say, yes, we're growing the Democratic Party. We're going to bring a lot of people to our side.
We need to implement a jumbo primary where the top two vote getters are the ones that are put before the voters in the general election, and that will have a huge impact on the gerrymandering we face, because you'll have two different candidates for the general election to select from.
Thanks. So now, by agreement, we're going to have closing comments of 3 minutes. There was a drawing. Mayor Gillum won. So let's listen to their final comments. And by the way, you guys, great job. I've enjoyed this.
Okay, we didn't mean to confuse anyone. Wow. Okay, well, they want to leave. They may have somewhere to go. Okay.
Clamoring to get in.
So I want to join in thanking first Keith and the Progressive Caucus for allowing this opportunity for us. It feels good to be able to have a diversity of ideas and perspectives, well articulated around who we are, what we stand for, and what we want to do here in the state of Florida. This is a good thing. It's a good thing. I would be remiss if I also didn't recognize the most beautiful, elegant, talented, brilliant woman that I know, my wife, Gillum. I told you all about some advice my grandmother used to give me growing up with the olive oil, right? She had another piece of advice before I would leave each day to go to school. She said, boy, go to school, mind your teachers, get your lesson, and bring that education home. She said, bring it home for your little brother and your little sister who don't know what it is, bring it home. Bring it home for that little boy down the street that you play with, God knows where he gonna end up. Bring it home. She said, bring it home for your mama and your daddy who get up every single day to go work on somebody else's job, to keep a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table. Bring it home. I didn't know then, but I would later come to learn that what my grandmother was communicating to me was that I was responsible to more than just myself. I was responsible, yes, to my brother, my sister, my family, to the neighbors, my friend who she didn't even like, to the community. That there was this sense of the collective, that if I went far in life, we'd all go far. That if I did good, we all do good. And that's who we are as a state. Working people, if they do well and we pay better than livable wages, but wages with dignity, we all do good in that scenario. If our kids are getting an opportunity to learn, and they're going on either to graduate from high school and get a job and a career, or going on to college, we all do better when the middle class is working and is earning. Businesses are starting when we address climate change and create jobs out of that, when we make sure that a woman has every right she needs to make her own reproductive health decisions for herself. When we do that, we all do good. So y'all, we've got to win this race. The Democrats have to win this race, not so that one of our names can be called governor. Yes, that. But we've got to win because of who loses when we lose elections. Who loses when we lose elections? The 1.5 million of the most medically needy people in this state. The kids who are being told they attend failure factories. The folks who can't make ends meet and therefore have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to do so. Those are the folks who lose when we lose elections. So I have one thing to ask you, and that is the thing that I asked when I ran in the city of Tallahassee, and that I'm asking you now as a contender for the Democratic nomination for governor. I want you to give me a chance. And I promise you, if you give me that chance, I will fight every single day to make sure that our values are represented and that we bring it home for Florida in November of 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you to the Progressive Caucus. Thank you, Democrats. It's an honor to be able to share ideas with you here today. You know, I want you to imagine for a second, October of 2018. There will be a gubernatorial final debate, and there'll be one of us, and there'll be a Republican. And there will be that moment that always comes. We've watched it over and over again. When the Republican looks at the Democrat, and then they look out at the state of Florida, and they say, you can't trust this tax and spend liberal to manage Florida. You can't trust this person because they can't create jobs, they can't grow business, they will ride this economy down, right? We've heard it every cycle, over and over again. If you choose this Democrat, if you choose this Democrat as your nominee and I am on that stage, I will look to the Republican and I will say, on the contrary, not this Democrat. This Democrat created jobs. This Democrat created successful businesses, created profit, delivered returns to investors, served customers all across the country. But then I will look to Mr. Putnam, Mr. Latvala, or Mr. Corbett, or whoever they will be. And I will say, but you, sir, it was your party that rode this economy down. It was your party that created an affordable housing crisis. It was your party that said no to Medicaid expansion. It was your party that took us to the back of the pack We can manage this economy. We can do well by doing good. That's been the story I've tried to prove every year in business. It's the story, if you give me the opportunity, I want to prove as your next governor. One of my heroes, probably one of many of your heroes, is Bobby Kennedy. And Bobby Kennedy had that great line, right? You know it, we all know it. Some people see things as they are and ask, why? I dream things that never were and ask, why not? The hardest question I get everywhere I go is, can Democrats win in 2018? Can we? Yes. Will we? Yes. I want to be your candidate to do it. Thank you.
I love it. And I want to thank everybody who's here today. Again, I want to thank the Progressive Caucus, Keith, Susan, I don't know where Susan is. This was incredible, Susan. Andrew and Chris and everybody here in this room. After 20 years of Republican, and I'm not going to say anything other than disaster that the state of Florida has faced, we don't have another election to give. This is the election that's going to decide whether Florida has a bright future or not. I want a bright future for our students. I want a bright future for every Floridian. We've got to commit to returning public education to a system that supports all kids all across the state. We've got to commit to an economy that's not jobs, but it's opportunity. And we've got to commit to our environment so that we can leave a Florida to future generations. I'm not a career politician. I didn't decide to run for office until 2012. But you know what? I have a lifetime of experiences. I have a lifetime as a mom, as a single mom, as a PTA president, having worked in our school district, having worked for the Sierra Club on a pro bono basis. I understand and I get what needs to be done for Florida's future. And I have won in an area that no one gave me a chance. No one thought that I was going to win that. But you know what? We did, with the help of so many people in this room. And November 6, 2018, we're going to win again. And Governor Graham, the next Governor Graham, is going to return Florida back to what I so appreciate Andrew and Chris talking about, a Florida that's on the right path for our kids, for the adults that are working across our state, and for our seniors. We haven't talked about seniors very much, but we need to make sure that we have a state that's taking care of our seniors. And Florida is going to be the Sunshine State again, and not just a Sunshine State in terms of what you look at when you walk outside, but a Sunshine State where we all can smile, support one another, love one another, and be excited about the future, because that's what is at stake, the future of Florida. And I thank you all so much for being here and for caring. So let's take that outside and let's return Florida's future for all of us. Thank you. Thank you.
Especially a Democratic convention.
So gracious and so good.
And see you, Ray.